Well, hi, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal, and we're live on a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And on this St. Patrick's Day, I hope you're feeling absolutely wonderful. I would like to say that one of the joys of being who I am is there's just this little part of me that's Irish. I think it's about an eighth or something. And so, yes, I'm wearing the green. And what I wanted to say was that all of you, whether you've got Irish heritage in you or not, I wish you the greatest St. Patrick's Day. It's always a fun day if you want it to be. And I must admit that for me, it's great memories of a lot of fun St. Patrick's Days. So today, though, we've got quite an serious subject, and I don't want to take away from that, but I will be doing quotes from St. Patrick's Day to balance it out. Our broadcast today is about feeling in control or feeling that you're losing control, whether it's you or somebody you know. It is the most horrible feeling when you think you've got your life sort of in a sort of path that's working for you, and suddenly everything seems to go wrong. What is that expression? It never rains, but it pours. And it's really important for you to understand that it happens to us all. It's not just you. It happens to us all at different times of our lives for different reasons. And that's the subject that I want to talk about today. I'd like to introduce you, for those of you who are new, to Jody. She's our admin. She does a lot of research while we're busy chatting here. And all top of the afternoon to you, Jody. For those of you who don't know, Dear Mama Sal's not just me. It's a group of people who get together 3 times a week. And please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's where I let you know if I need to cancel a broadcast for some reason, or I want to add one in or do something funny. And don't forget to give it a thumbs up or and to click the bell. And give it a thumbs up if you hear anything that's of value to you today. And hopefully there'll be lots of things of value. I'd also like to say, give it a thumbs up if there's anything that you relate to. All right. So if you go, wow, I know that feeling, then give it a thumbs up each time you feel that. That would be awesome. So before we discuss our subject, what I want you to do is just wish Sharon had a birthday this week on the 12th. So happy birthday for Sharon. I know it's past, but all the best on that one. And for those of you who haven't worked it out yet, we're just 5 days away from spring, so it's wonderful. And if we've missed a birthday, please let us know. If you're a regular and for some reason we haven't mentioned your birthday and it was this week, please let us know, because it means it's not in our database. And that would make me very sad to think that we missed it. Jeannie's just advising, hi Jeannie. Jeannie's just advising me that she's going to be picking up the ashes of her fur baby. And that's really, really a sad feeling. Um, hmm. I don't have words to say. I know the feeling. Um, and yeah, it just sort of makes me sad even to think about it, quite honestly. So let me take a breath and regroup. Many years ago, many years ago, I wrote a seminar called Who's Pressing Your Buttons? And the reason, I also wrote a book around it, but the reason that I wanted to talk about it is because most of us are pretty good about dealing with everyday things. All right, because we sort of go in what I call waves. All right, we gain a bit of self-esteem or whatever, and then something hits us that sort of drops us down a bit, but that's okay, because we start rebuilding our lives again, and then something hits us, and that's fine. So it sort of goes in a wave, and that's great. However, what happens at certain times of our lives is we don't have recovery time. All right, we go down in a dip like this, and instead of starting to build up again, another wave hits us and takes us farther down, and then another wave hits us and takes us farther down. How many of you relate to this? And you just don't seem to be able to get your head above water. And for that reason, it is time to be really aware. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how you can be aware if you choose to, and you can take the right steps to take yourself out of that horrible situation. So if you like, it's about our bandwidth. We can all take a certain amount of negative input, but too much of it, and we start to overwhelm. And I certainly relate to it, and I'm going to give you some examples. Jody had some incredible examples for it this week, and so we're going to use her example as well. St. Patrick's Day is an enchanted time, a day to begin transforming winter's dreams into summer's magic. Unless, of course, you're in the southern hemisphere, in which case it would be summer's dreams into winter's magic. And let's go to Jody's story. A few weeks ago, I was telling you how Jody was coping with various health issues, and she has been for a long time. And she's sort of dealing with those, all right? And then she had a horrible experience where she got up to go somewhere and her one foot refused to work. And she ended up falling over um, because we expect both feet to work. And she fell, and you know, you can imagine when she went to get back up again, she realized she couldn't move that foot. It wouldn't, it, normally you sort of walk like this, but her foot wouldn't come back up again. It just, she couldn't get it back up again when she went to walk. And so she's had, must be a month of this now, Jody, if I'm correct. And you can imagine how terrifying that was. And it's not like she didn't have other things going on. It happened on January the 22nd. Okay, so it's a couple of months now. So you understand that was horrific for her. At the same time, she's also dealing with a rent increase. She's dealing with a rent increase when she was already literally, juggling every penny in her budget. And so she could not afford a rent increase, and now she's got to look at what she's already tightened her belt so many times, it's not even funny, but now she needs to tighten it again. And where to tighten it? Because they live a very frugal lifestyle. Where do you tighten it again? And I'm going to talk about what she's been doing. Jody, being Jody, worked it out that she's a great believer in intermittent fasting. That's where you only eat for certain hours of the day. For example, you only eat for 8 hours of the day, rather than 16 of them. So basically, you just drink liquids for the 16 hours and then eat for the rest. And what she did, and she's very clever at sort of having a positive mindset. She knows from her experience, she had the sleeve surgery and everything else, that she actually can exist pretty well just on healthy soups, like broths and stuff like that have good stuff in them. Why does she know that? Because she had to do it for 3 months. So Jody wasn't totally overwhelmed with it. She didn't like it, and it was just another hit that she didn't need. But what she realized was that she had capability of being able to intermittent fast. And that would save her budget a little bit. Now, that's really what I call very smart thinking. All right, she's got very negative stuff going on, but she's taking back just that little bit of control. If she chooses to do intermittent fasting, she can lower her monthly grocery bill by this much. Now, that's pretty clever. But then being Jody, she spent a lot of time thinking about, and what else can I do? What else? You see, she's not going to be victim to it. She's going to keep looking for solutions. And then she found out by doing the research and asking the right questions of the right people, she found out that she actually qualifies for Meals on Wheels. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is a service that happens in most communities, definitely in North America. I believe it happens in England. I'm not sure what country you live in, but you may want to check it out. Do you have Meals on Wheels in your country? And if so, do you know what it takes to qualify? I probably qualify, with what's going on with my life. I don't need it necessarily at the moment, but it's nice to know that I do. And here's what they do. They not only bring you a meal a day, and they bring you a meal in a certain time slot every day, um, but it's a healthy meal. It's got all the right sort of, it's balanced and everything else. And Jody was saying that with her Meals on Wheels, they also bring dairy, they bring milk, and they also bring fruit every day. So you're getting a really good nutritional meal at least, once a day. Now you can supplement it with whatever you want to, but it's good to know you're going to get one balanced meal. And the question is, how much does that cost? Well, it depends. You can either, if you're in a position to pay for it, you can either do that, and they will let you know what contribution they would like. I know I did the research, Jody, and in where I live, it's about $8 a day if you want to contribute to it. However, it also is funded in most countries if you are not in a position to pay for it. In other words, most governments will fund a Meals on Wheels type program. So think about how clever that was. There she was, you know, hit after hit after hit, and now rent increase and nowhere to tighten the budget anymore. And by the way, remember, she's also dealing with the fact that half her electricity in her apartment isn't working. And by the way, Jody, I would say that you've had that going on far too long. I would think it would be good time to start being a squeaky wheel on this one, because I don't, or ask for a rent reduction for this month. It must be a month that you've been without electricity in part of your house, your apartment that you're renting. And so to me, this is, you pay rent for all the facilities working, not part of them. And especially midwinter, I would think you have quite a case here for a rent reduction, which would also help you. Hi, Charlotte. Good to see you as well. Um, so you can imagine, and what I want you to feel is that with Jody's, everything that happened to her was one more thing, and she got more and more and more despondent. How many of you relate to that feeling where you just can't get your head back up out of the water enough to sort of take a deep breath and see sunlight again? It's just you keep getting pushed down and down and down with various things. And it's not that you don't want to get out, it's just like there are too many things coming at you at one time. Luckily, Jodie's learned a lot over the years, not only through her own experience with cancer and with other illnesses and things like that, but she has learned through life in general, and also through being here. Yes, Charlotte saying, when it piles up, it really piles up. Yes, absolutely. And I certainly am going to talk about my experience as well. So what I did is I asked Jody, how did she get back in control? Because I can feel, I speak to Jody every day, and I can feel she's turned a corner. I sort of was aware that she was dropping, but my job was to be there for her as much as I could. But unfortunately, she was dropping at the same time as I was. And so that was a really difficult situation for us both, because we both wanted to be more support for one another. But guess what? We had to look after ourselves. So, but here's what Jody said she did. And I thought I'd share it with you. I have her permission. She said she both thought about it and acted about it. Now, I've always said there's only one way out of depression, if ever you get it, and it's not thinking about it, it is doing something about it. And, I've always said that the pills alone will not take you out of depression. They'll help you manage it, but they won't take you out. They'll just keep you, you know, at a baseline sort of thing. So Jody said she both thought about it and she acted on it. She said it just took time. And I think any of you who've been there would agree with her. It takes time. First of all, it takes time for you to realize that you're in the drop and that the pull on you is getting greater. You know, it's like the sucking sound is pulling you down. And so it takes a while to realize it's going on. But once you realize it, then you have what they call a crisis of commitment. Are you going to carry on being pulled down, or are you going to stick your feet firmly on the ground somewhere and hold fast at the level that you're at? Jody said she was praying, trying to keep busy doing little things that I enjoy, but it was difficult because I had so much anxiety, it almost consumed me. Ugh, I know that. She said, I lost 22 pounds in a month because I was having so much trouble eating. That was another thing. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly how it resolved, other than the anxiety got to be a little less each day, and then the depression got a little bit better over the weeks. I still have to constantly be aware of my mood and mindset so I don't dip back down. I don't think it's ever cured, but rather managed more effectively. She went on to tell me, I've also been taking a little time when the negative thoughts creep in to sit quietly and think about the things that make me happy. It's like my mission to override the negative thoughts. I tell myself it's just as easy to have positive thoughts as it is to have negative ones. And positivity leads to peace of mind. So even though she still doesn't have electricity working completely in her apartment, she has found a way to cook. All right. She still has major health issues, but I hope you can hear that what she is doing is constantly taking little steps back to her humanity. I believe it was a movie called What's Up, Bob? I think that was the name of it, with Bill Murray. Do any of you remember it? And the whole line that went through the whole movie was baby steps. Take baby steps. And I cannot tell you the value of doing What About Bob? Thank you very much, Jody. Yes, What About Bob? Tiny steps are great leaps in anxieties. All right? Charlotte's saying. So here is the thing. If you can understand, if you feel that incredible pull of losing control of your life, all right, the way you get to feel better is to take tiny little steps of control back again. Now, how does that work? Well, for Jody, one of the things that she found out, was that she could have Meals on Wheels. So she knew, even though everything else was going in a peculiar way, she was going to get one good meal a day, and it was going to get delivered. And not only that, she knew that those people would be doing a health check on her. And it is part of their job that if they find that for some reason they can't get to the person that they're trying to deliver a meal for, then they sort of give a heads up. And what happens is the office will phone their emergency contact person and say, have you heard from your loved one? And if they haven't heard either, then they will put in for a health check. A police, what do they call it, Jody? I say a health check, but to make sure that you're okay. So, I look at it and go, that's a really good thing. A wellness check. Thank you very much. Thanks, Charlotte and Jody. And so you look at it and go, there are a lot of you that live on your own. There are a lot of you that are struggling financially. There are a lot of you probably not eating as well as you should. And my question is, how many of you actually qualify for Meals on Wheels? So I'm not sure what it is where you live, but Jody said in where she lives in the States, her particular state, I think it changes from state to state, so check it out. You need to be over age 60 with no income requirement. You need to have limited ability to leave the home. Under 60, you must be homebound and have an income that is below the guideline, and each state will have a different one. So you heard that at the same time that Jody was going through the funk, so was I. Now, that's another very important part of wellness is, that you have a support system that works for you. So you can imagine I wasn't able to do my job as well as I normally would because I was having my own problems. Okay, interesting. Alice is saying, hi, Alice. Alice is in Denmark, and she said, um, there's no help for people under 65. All right, where she is. All right. So different countries have different support systems, but the important thing to know is there is help for people over 65. So I want to get to what happened to me, and some of you heard some of this. I coped really well with having a mastectomy, finding out I had cancer, and then I had the mastectomy, and I think I coped with that pretty well. What I didn't cope well with was suddenly finding out I needed to take this dangerous drug, and I didn't find that out until about 2 months after my surgery. Where are we now? We're now in March, so November, December, January, February. I had 3 months before I found out. And then they then told me I had a choice to take this dangerous drug, which would kill the estrogen in my body, but have a lot of side effects. The choice I had was to go through radiation, chemo, have my hair drop out, and do all sorts of things like that, and or take this pill for 5 years. And I chose to take the pill. I don't know why. I didn't know that it was going to hit me as hard as it did. And suddenly I noticed that I was losing ground. And, you guys know what I'm talking about. Suddenly I felt lonely. Suddenly I felt scared and sad, and all those feelings that you all know about. And when I realized that that large sucking sound was pulling me down, I then realized I needed to do something or else it would consume me. It's done it before in my life, and I didn't ever want to go back there again. So I know when I feel those things happening to me, I need to take action. I don't need to sit and hope that things are going to get better. I have to do something to make myself feel better. And the first thing I did, as you all know, is I took about a week off. It was strange. But I not only stopped broadcasting, but I also stopped doing a lot of things. I just literally took a week off to rest. And I had no idea how tired I was until I did that. The other thing I started to do was to realize some things again. All right. You remember I said I was lonely and I was sad and I was scared. So let's go through that. One of the ways I help myself is always look at the other side of things. All right. So if you think about it, lonely is the opposite of social. Would you agree? And so what I know is if I'm feeling lonely, then the cure for it, if you like, is to be social. So can I take one step today being more social? That's what I asked myself. And so what I started to do was take one step, write to one of my friends and say, hey, just want to let you know, I'm just going through a bit of a tough time, so I may need a bit of extra support. You see, I told them that truth. And the wonderful thing was that my friends were horrified to hear I was going through a tough time, but went out of their way to support me. And that made me feel better. tiny step better. And then every day I made it a point, every day I contacted one friend, somebody who cares about me, somebody who loves me enough to support me through this tough time. And, feeling sad, think about that. The opposite of sad is happy. So every day I ask myself, have you done something that makes you happy? And, different things for different people. I don't know what makes you happy. But, if you make sure that every day you spend 1 hour of your time or even 5 minutes of your time doing that thing that makes you happy, your life, you will get your feet back on your ground much more quickly. Yeah, Alice is saying that she can't always tell when it's going to hit. And sometimes it's like a 2x4 that just hits her over the head. I agree, Alice. And it comes in waves. And if you don't have time to recover before the next wave hits you, it will push you down and down and down and down. All right. And that's why these little baby steps, remember, what about Bob? Baby steps is the way you get back out. So I made these little baby steps a priority during that week off over housework. How many of you are laughing at that one? It was like, I don't care that I haven't made my bed. It is more important for me right now to do something that I enjoy than if that's all the energy I've got. Because you understand, instead of going from 0 to 60, I went from 60 to 0. I had so little energy. And so if I only have this much energy today, I don't want to use it up making my bed. Does that make sense to anybody? I want to use it up doing something that makes me happy. And then, what I found was I do this one little thing to make me happy, and then I need to sleep because I'd used up the energy. I wonder if any of you can relate to this. And if you can, if you're listening on the replay, please make sure you leave some comments so that people know they're not alone. And then I thought about being scared. And, I looked up the opposites or antonyms, depending on if you know that word antonym, it means the opposite of something. And here are the opposites of being scared. Being brave would be an opposite. Being courageous, being happy, being unafraid, being confident, being encouraged. How many of you would attach some or a lot of those words to the me that you normally see? How many of you perceive me to be a brave person or courageous or happy or unafraid or confident or encouraged? How many of you see those qualities in me most weeks? Yeah, Alice is saying, but to forgive yourself is what you need to do, right? And that no matter what it is, small things, as long as you're doing the best you can, it's good enough. Yes, knowing that it is good enough. Yeah, Jody's saying that she would attach all those qualities to the Sal she knows most of the time. So do you understand that I had lost part of me? Does that make sense to any of you? I was so scared that I had lost my ability to be brave. And I wasn't feeling very courageous. I'm sure Jody relates to this. I wasn't feeling very happy, and I certainly was not unafraid. And I certainly wasn't feeling confident, and I certainly wasn't feeling very encouraged. And with tears in my eyes, it was not a good feeling. And so when I reached out to my friends, I let them know I was scared. And I needed some help rebuilding me. Alice is saying it's different when you lose footing for a while. Yes, it is, isn't it? And Jody's saying it's all very relatable. It's miserable. And Alice is saying, this too shall pass. Yeah, but if I just sit and think this too shall pass and don't do anything, it will last a long time. If I want to get out of it, I need to rest. I need to listen to my inner voices. And I need to do the baby steps every day to take the steps out of there. So I made a point of talking to people who knew that brave side of me, that courageous side of me, which would be almost anybody who knows me. And I said to them, I'm really having a tough time. I'm scared. It's very unusual, but I'm scared. This drug is kicking the what out of me. And I realize this might be the best I'm going to feel for the next 5 years. And that scares me. But what is so beautiful is when you tell people that truth, when you actually open up and tell people the truth of what's going on for you, they are able to support you. All right? They are able to support you in a whole different way. And what I found so magical was the people around me reminded me of my humanity. They reminded me I'm not Superwoman. And it was quite normal to be scared. You see, they did for me what I do for a lot of other people. And they also reminded me that even though I was so scared, I was still handling it so well, which surprised me. And they said, you still keep doing things. You still keep doing the best you can. It's who you are. And they said, and you still keep taking baby steps in the right direction. So please just give yourself a break here. They also reminded me of something. And funny enough, Benji reminded me of this when we had a long conversation this week. That I haven't had a vacation for many years. He was telling me the last time I went down to see them was 4 years ago. Can you imagine that? He's got 2 children I've never met. So we're going to make a plan about that. And unfortunately, I've lost my passport. So he's going to make sure that he brings them all up so that I can have a meeting with them all. And, it was wonderful what he also added to that, which I thought was really beautiful. He said, Sal, you also need to know that you have reached an even more important stage in our family than you were before. And I said, what? Because I felt that I was losing my importance to the family because I wasn't there. And he said, no, think about that. The girls have all lost mama. And so now you have an even bigger role than you had before because you are now a mama. You've always been Mama Sal, but now that, if you like, that role is more important than it's ever been. And I know it was Benji's way of making sure that I knew I was still needed and I still had contribution to make and all the things that Benji would think about. But it was interesting that he and other people were correct. I haven't had a vacation for 4 years. And if you think about it, they've been 4 pretty tough years. Pandemic years, fire years, moving years. It's been a tough time. And really what almost everybody said is it just caught up with me. And then I got cancer. Yeah. So it just, it was bit after bit after bit after bit after bit. And I just couldn't bounce back until I got some rest, till I started taking a good look at what was going on in my life. Alice is saying, truth and being vulnerable are the keys to personal growth. Yes, most people are so scared to tell anybody the truth because they might be judged. How many YouTubers, will tell their audience that they're having a tough time? Not many. And so, to me, it's very important that this is quite normal. I am not Superwoman. I am me. And I am me, and me is a very brave, courageous, happy, young sort of person most of the time. However, I am still a human being, and therefore I have moments that are not necessarily as good as I would like. And I'm not proud of them. I'm not proud that I needed to take that break. It felt horrible for me. It felt horrible to cancel one broadcast, never mind. I think I canceled 4 eventually. 5. 5. And it was just like I've never done that. In all the years I've been broadcasting, I've never canceled 5. I also heard from another viewer, and, she's part of our decluttering group. And she wrote to me and she said, I've always been good at helping myself and managing my ADHD until I got to 49. I think hormonal shifts made it harder. So this is the decluttering group that we have, helped me gain the energy to keep applying and experimenting with strategies. Now, the reason I want to compliment that particular member of our group is because she can see that. She can see the value of a buddy system. There is something really strange about the fact that you might not do it for yourself, but if you know that somebody else is also trying to do it, you will do it to support the other person. Isn't that weird? All right. And I think a lot of you will relate to that. Alice is saying we are all human, but it would be worse if we weren't able to react to things. Yes, I agree that I know my feelings are just that. They are feelings. All right. They are just feelings. And what do we know? Feelings are our responsibility. All right. You remember the way you get off the hamster wheel is to let go of the feelings and start dealing in the facts. And what I realized was you understand what I did with turning those things around. What am I feeling? I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling out of control. Well, hello. How do I get control back? And baby steps. I start doing little bits of discipline. Right? And I realized I hadn't done any steps at all. And I was down to about 2 to 3,000 steps a day after having been doing 8 to 10. No wonder I was feeling a bit down. How many of you realize I'd put on weight? And what did that do? Right? And then I can blame it on the pill because, this pill, one of the contraindications are that you can put on weight. Well, of course you can. And because if you are sad and scared and all those things, you will comfort eat, in which case you will put on weight. And so I went, okay, I know I've put on weight. So what one step can I take? And that's to be more aware. And that meant that I needed to get the discipline back a little bit on what I had to eat each day, which means I need to go back to meal prepping, which means I need to, make myself little meals that are healthy for me, like my own little meals on wheels, that I need to make sure they're balanced. Alice has got a lovely analogy. She's saying, we allow a computer to process new programs. Why not your feelings and your body? Yes, we need to give our body time to adjust not only the medication, all right, but also our mindset about that medication. And the other thing was, how many of you know my relationship with Jody is very precious to me? And the fact that I couldn't support her the way I wanted to because I would be lying in a lot of ways, um, that hurt me horribly. But it was what it was, and I knew that she would understand that. And I knew that she knew I was struggling myself. So we both did as best we could. And that was okay. I didn't ever feel unloved by Jody or by any of my other friends. I thought it wonderful that, I don't know if you know, but part of the process post my operation is every month I need to get this arm. This is where I had the mastectomy. I have to measure this arm to see if it's swelling, if it's getting lymphedema. But it requires that I measure both arms. And what I've discovered is that both my arms had started to swell a little bit. And I said, well, that would make sense to me because I put on weight. Duh. Jody's saying, I don't know if you realize this, Sal. When we were both struggling at the same time, it was beautiful to see you being honest with yourself about how tired you were and allowing yourself to rest. It was an inspiring thing for me. Yeah. So, but how difficult was it to do, Jody? All right. Because we will pretend to be fine just to support each other. All right. And I say we as human beings. So you understand that each baby step you take towards getting back your daily routine will help you. So to me, I realized, one of the other big red flags for me was I noticed that I hadn't showered in a couple of days. Like, hello? That doesn't say that I am in control of my life. That says that my life is controlling me and that the depression is sucking me in. And the first thing I did, I have to tell you, once the first major shift I made was if you only do one thing today, and that's what I did every day. I said, what is the one thing you want to accomplish today? Why? Accomplishment makes me feel good. I don't know what it is for you, but I feel good when I solve a problem or I accomplish something. I always feel better. So I went, your one goal for the whole day, if you don't do anything else, is to have a shower. And I remember the what if person inside me, right? That monster saying, but what if you can't stand up long enough? And I went, that's why you bought a shower seat. And if you need to sit down, you're like a 90-year-old to shower, then you do it. But you don't want any more excuses as to why you can't shower. And if necessary, you need to call somebody that loves you in to help you shower because you need to have a shower. And Alice is saying, thank goodness we don't have smells on screens yet. Yeah, it's just as well. But can you understand? That was my goal. And what I said was, if I accomplish that one goal today, it means I have control over my life. My life does not have control over me. Does this make sense? It would be a major baby step in the right direction. Jody saying, I wanted to fight that fight for you, the fear and the depression. But I realized I couldn't even take care of myself at that time. I wanted to do more, and I'm so relieved that you knew how loved you are. Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it at all, Jody. I mean, we've got history, honey. So each baby step you take back to your daily routine is a step in the right direction. Do you understand that? So each time I go outside and breathe in fresh air, all right? Each time I go outside and do something outside so I'm breathing fresh air, means that I made the effort to control my life, not that my life was controlling me. So it was the smallest thing, even if it was just go outside and take your composting out, or go outside and go dig a little bit in the garden, even if it's, you're not going to plant anything, just get your hands dirty. Why? Because, like so many things in life, once you go out there with that intention, instead of spending 5 minutes, you'll probably spend 10, which means you get 10 minutes of fresh air. And you all know, because you've known me a long time, that playing in the dirt makes me happy. I don't know how I'm ever lucky enough to have nails, because I never wear gloves. I just like to play in the dirt. And then I, bring that stuff back into my house, and then I've got more cleaning up to do. And there was the next thing. Don't worry about cleaning up the whole house. Just take one step. Your goal is, if it takes all week, your goal is to get the bathroom tidy again. All right. And then it was now the bathroom, and start getting the bedroom tidy again. And that's how I did it. And I only came back to do the broadcast once I actually got as far as getting the kitchen tidy. So, can you see that these steps, each one of them, were steps that required that I be bold in my decision making? I needed to be brave to overcome my fear. I needed to be courageous. I needed to know I could be happy again if I worked at it, because happiness is a state of mind. And it was okay to be afraid, but I didn't have to live in fear. Jody, you must relate to that one. Alice, I know, having met you, that you have things in your life where you have good reason to be afraid, but no reason to live in fear. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I could see that there was room, however small, for me to start feeling confident again, and to feel encouraged again. And if I could feel all of those feelings again, that meant that I could help others again. Because I realized that I was trying to give from a vacuum before. I was feeling less and less like me, and still trying to produce broadcasts. And, I want to tell you that, some of you know that producing a broadcast isn't just standing here for the time that I stand here and flapping my lips. That, it takes some serious amount of time to decide what I'm going to talk about, and how I want to talk about it, and what examples I want to give. And, for example, getting permission from Jody, or getting permission from the other viewer to tell their story. It all takes time and effort, and then to shape it in a way that will make it meaningful for others. Yes, Alice is saying, yes, I had to choose not to live in fear. But I'm way better at economizing my energy now. Jody says, fear is the thief of joy. Oh, it surely is, yes. And she also makes a note and says about producing the broadcast. She said it takes time and a lot of bandwidth. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just knew it was. That's when I knew I had to start canceling broadcast, is because I Jody will tell you, I never have an issue about producing a broadcast. I know that the subject matter will come to me. It always does. I've been doing this for 10 years, and, quite often it'll get to Thursday and I'm going, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. So I better be more aware today of what's going on, because it's quite funny. Jody will tell you, it's quite funny. I just wait for that inspiration to hit me. And then I go, oh, that's what it is. That's what I need to talk about. And you see, I believe in that. Because I believe in it, it happens every week. Jody says it's quite magical to see the process. You see, once I know what the subject is, then I can put all the bits around it. I just have to ask the questions. Who do I know that's suffering from? Who do I know that's experiencing? What are they experiencing, and what am I experiencing, and what do we all need to remember about this? Why is it important? Where, when, how? I just ask those questions, and I've got a broadcast. It's not as magical as you think. It's just like, but I need a place to start. And it's a very small, tiny step. It's, do I know what I want to talk about? And you can imagine it gets quite frightening when it gets to Thursday and the light bulb hasn't gone. This is what it's going to be this week. Now, you will know that 2 weeks ago, I decided I wanted to talk about living in fantasy. And I've had that graphic up for 2 weeks now. I'm going to do it on Sunday. In other words, I had the inspiration about that broadcast, but I just haven't got to it yet. But I love the graphic, and so I just keep moving the date when I'm going to do it. And I'm certain you'll all appreciate that. Yes, Alice said we aren't meant to solve things for our friends, but to hold their hand while they solve it for themselves. Absolutely. And so that's why I knew, I talk about love glue. I knew that Jody knew how much I loved her. And if there was any way I could be holding her hand any more closely, I would be doing so at this time. Vice versa, I knew that Jody was giving me as much support as she possibly could, allowing for the fact she was where she was in her process. I was quite happy. Yvonne came to do those measurements on my arm, and she spent probably 2 more hours with me than she would normally spend. All right. And she talked to me about the difference I made in her life and her children's, her son's life and her grandson's life. And she talked to me about, all the people that I had a major impact in their life. And she reminded me of all the times how often I had been brave and courageous and strong and stood up for people where it meant a great harm to myself to stand up and protect somebody, but I did it because that's who I am. And she reminded me of a lot of things, and she said, that is the person I know. And you will be back there as soon as you start looking after yourself better. You've just let go of looking after you a little bit. It's said that whether it's St. Patrick's Day or not, everyone has a little luck of the Irish in them. I think I'm very lucky to have a little bit of the Irish in me. I believe that part of my sense of humor comes from that part of me that is Irish. I believe that part of my gift of the gab, and oh yes, I do believe I have that, is because of my Irishness, however small. I think it's about 25% or something. But the main thing is that I can see that I am just a human. So I look at it and I go, a human that has had a tough few years, but done the best she could. And I can give myself credit for that. What about you? And so I want to turn this around and ask you, can you see how turning the words around, giving myself the opposite of those words, that is the first step I take to taking the right steps in the right direction. Did that make sense? So I go, if I am scared, first of all, I have to get honest. What is the honest feeling? The honest feeling is being scared. Scared is okay. First of all, there are no bad or good feelings. Scared is okay. And it's good that you can feel it and that you're not denying it. It's good, so just let it be. What are you scared of? I'm scared of this drug and what it's doing to my body and how I feel. And I had this whole list, and what if I don't feel any better than I do today? And I was feeling pretty bad that day. And so then I went, okay, all good, intelligent questions. No bad feelings, Sal. It's just what you're feeling. Now then, do you want to spend your day feeling like that, or do you want to start shifting that? Well, obviously, I want to start shifting it. Well, then you need to do something different. Do you all agree with me? If we keep doing what we have been doing, the result will be the same. So it was pretty obvious to me that I had unintentionally been spending more time dwelling on the negatives of this drug than I had been spending on the positives of the fact that I might not have cancer anymore. And that I still didn't have half the bad side effects that I thought I was going to have. You see, I spent too much time on the negatives. As Jody said, negativity takes away your joy. So if you keep spending that much time on the negative, you will not feel joy. So it was really important for me to go, okay, I'm feeling scared, but I need to do some brave, courageous things. Now, I know it probably sounds funny for you, but do you understand that even going to have a shower was a brave step for me? Because I was feeling so bad. I didn't know if I could undress. Oh, I went to sleep with my clothes on. You know, also, I was doing all sorts of strange things. Yeah, Alice is saying I know that too well. I'm sorry to hear that, Alice, but I'm glad you can relate because that means hopefully other people will as well. I thought this was a nice quote about being Irish. It said, if you're Irish, it doesn't matter where you go, you will find family. And I would like to just say that that was an important part of my recovery as well, which was I knew I had people who very definitely cared about me greatly. And that was really important because I knew I needed to tell them the truth. Now, do any of you fall into that trap? Well, I don't want to bother them because they're busy. Or they've got their own problems, so I don't want to bother them with mine. You see, if you're doing that, you are not looking after yourself. Because those people are the very people that will always make that extra bandwidth available to be able to just hold your hand for a second. Because they love you. Oh, interesting. Alice is saying, this is a very interesting thing. She's saying you can't bother anyone who doesn't want to be bothered. um, yeah. So when I look at it, you can hopefully see that just looking at the opposites in each of them, if I'm feeling scared, then I need to know what the opposite of scared is and start doing things that are in those things. Do something brave, go and have a shower. And after I had that shower, I felt so good. All right. And then I slept for 12 hours because I was exhausted. But that's okay. I still felt really good. I was so glad that we had had so many programs where we'd been cooking stuff, and I got, a huge freezer full of food because I didn't have to cook for a week. I could just eat frozen foods out of my freezer. So I look at it and go, if you can see that having that blip didn't take away those qualities. It didn't take away my bravery or my courage or my humor or my whatever. It just stifled them for a while. So it wasn't that I was pretending to get back to things, it was I was getting back to the real me. Think about that. The real me isn't a scaredy cat, is it? The real me isn't a lonely person. The real me isn't unhappy. The real me isn't any of those things. Why? I do things that don't allow those things to dominate my life. I know that if I'm lonely, I need to, reach out and chat to people. And funny enough, the sun came out this week. We're about to have a week of rain, but the sun came out this week. And, one of my neighbors who has cancer happened to be sitting out in the sunshine. And even though I wasn't feeling uh, up to it, I decided to walk over there and sit with him and chat with him and see how he was doing. Yeah, Alice is saying most days at the moment I'm not able to sleep until after 4 a.m. Amen, sister. That's my problem as well. But the benefit is that I'm more creative at night, and most days I don't have to get up early anyway. Exactly. I'm so grateful for the fact that I'm retired, Alice. And the fact I go to sleep until 4 and I don't get up until 10 is nobody's problem except mine. St. Patrick said, "Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be." Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to read it again. St. Patrick. "Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be." So we look at life and go, we are so responsible for ourselves. So responsible for ourselves. And the only person who can switch that switch and do the U-turn is you. It's not somebody else. I can remember spending a lot of time talking to different psychologists and psychiatrists and people like that, socially as well as as a patient. But what I talk to them about is, why is it that we have to wait until we're so far down before we can turn ourselves around? And I will talk more about that on Sunday. But it is part of the process. All right. It is part of the process. Only you can decide when you want to turn around. And when I talk about this on Sunday, I will explain some of the reasoning for this. But I am so grateful that I've been through depression in my life. And, I spent most of my 20s and 30s in depression. But I still was very productive. I was a functioning depressive. And so to me, it is really important to know nothing that happens to you is necessarily bad. I don't believe I would have started DearMamaSal if I hadn't gone through what I've gone through in my life. I wouldn't have helped a lot of people. if I hadn't been through it myself. But on the other hand, I didn't wait until I was perfect before I started trying to share my knowledge. Yeah, Alice is saying, like the times when I can't see the light, I'm so grateful that I know it's there, whether I can see it or not. For those of you with faith, even in your darkest moments, you know you have your faith. Laura Flynn Boyle said, that's what holidays are for one person to tell the stories and another one to dispute them. Isn't that the Irish way? So I look at life and go, we travel this road together. We support each other because what do we know? This week, this month, some of us were struggling. But next week, next month, somebody else will be struggling. And through their struggles, we will remind ourselves what we need to do to stop struggling. And the main thing that I realized was rest is a very important part of it. And so my new normal, as difficult as it is for me to understand that, my new normal is, yes, some afternoons I need to take a nap. And that nap is about 4 hours. And my ego really struggled with that. Can any of you relate to that? I felt lazy. And it's not lazy. My body is tired. It's fighting a drug. It's tired. It needs rest. Alice is saying we don't have to walk alone unless we choose to. Yeah. Whenever people tell me they're lonely, I go, when did you last do something to meet new people? And they always have an excuse why they haven't. And in this day and age, I think we'd all agree, we have the internet. There is no excuse to be lonely. And if you're saying, yeah, but I want people that I can see face to face, well, hello, they're not lined up outside your door. That's why you're lonely. So therefore, you need to get out of the house. It's not rocket science, people. It is logic. Pope John Paul II said, love is never defeated. And I could add, the history of Ireland proves it. Right. Alice is, saying here, being a chronic pain person, as is Jody, and now as am I, all right, I know the brain fights to accept it, and it's needs rest. It's needed rest is not laziness, right? Jody is saying that 4-hour rest time is part of the prescription for your wellness, like good nutrition and some exercise. It's part of the balance. Well, again, because I'm a great believer in baby steps, as you know, and I do things in rotation. Each time I go to the washroom, it's the start of a new rotation. And what I found is I've got little lists of things I want to do, all right? And I keep doing them in rotation. In other words, I'll go to the washroom, but on my way back, I'll tidy one more thing in the bathroom, tidy one more thing in the in the bedroom, tidy one more thing in the craft room, tidy one more thing in the kitchen, and so I go. And, it's really amazing how that has worked for me. But the other thing is this. There are certain hours of the day where I try really hard not to sit for more than half an hour. Now I'm allowed to rest in the afternoons, but while I'm not in that period, I try not to sit for more than half an hour. Yesterday, I did over 6,000 steps because I didn't sit for very long at all. And what I've also learned is instead of sitting and answering emails, I stand, where my freezer is, and I answer them standing there, and then I carry on with whatever else it was I was doing. I have got this new system in my craft room where I sit for the first while just to load up paper and stuff like that because I decide what is it I want to cut out today. All right. And I get everything prepared to do that. That's the one task for today, is to cut this out. And what I do is get all the paper on the mats ready to go in. And then all I do is each time I get to the freezer, I pop around the other side. I go to the craft room and I put the next thing into the cutting machine and turn it on and I walk away. I don't have to sit and watch it. And then I've now got to a stage where I've got enough different mats that I can do 12 things in a day very easily. It just means that every time I go to the washroom, I put another one in. Now, it now means that the next day I have to take those 12 things off the mats and weed them and do stuff, or not. I just take them off the mat so I can use the mat again. I think those of you who've known me a long time know that experiments are part of my joy, right? How many of you are just chuckling thinking about that, right? And I now have two different sorts of microgreens. I've got these growing like this. It's so good. I can't believe it. And then I've got these growing in here. Now, this is my big one. Why have I got two different ones? Well, here's what you find out is that, can you see that these are all growing nicely? When they start to grow a little bit more, they will start to clump together. And when they clump together, they drop to the bottom. Okay, I got quite a few growing in the bottom there, but that's what basically happens. So some mornings, every morning I put fresh water in there, shake it around, and then it's got a sieve at the bottom there. But then what happens, you get these little clumps of seeds, right, like this. Once they clump, then they go in here. And this is where I go. When I'm making my pita or whatever, I just grab some from here. But here's my experiment I'm doing now, ones that I'm letting them grow bigger. What a waste of time. Or not. As you heard, I've saved quite a bit of money on lettuce by doing that. So, actually, Alice is saying, Sal, your hair has grown so long. Actually, I've just cut it, Alice. What I do is I try to keep it this length. All right? That's my chosen length. And I recently cut about 2 inches off it. I was amazed how long it had grown. Because I hadn't bothered to cut it over the winter sometime. I used to wear my hair in, I don't know what you call that in Denmark, but in bunches. When I used to have long hair. Whenever I was riding, my hair was always in bunches. But, it was one of the reasons, Alice, I chose not to have chemo and radiation. How about that for ego? I knew that if I had chemo and radiation, I would lose my hair and it probably would not grow back as beautifully as it does at the moment. And that's why I chose the pill. Isn't that amazing? My neighbor across the street, the guy, he chose radiation and chemo. Why? Because it would all be over after 10 days or something, or 2 months or whatever it took. But I did not want to lose my hair. And even so, I know that my hair will probably thin and still fall out quite a bit, but I won't totally lose it. So all these decisions are difficult to make. And I can't help but wondering, those of you, that understand this stuff, that, it's okay that they drag you down a bit. And so you look at it and learn we can cope. We just need time to adjust. Would that be fair? Yeah, Alice is saying, hey, I've grown my hair back after buzzing it all off 5 years ago because of pain. Yeah, we need time to adjust, right? To process that new information. We need time to adjust, to process. And like Alice said, we give our computers time to process. We need time to process. I had a lot of stuff. I think about Jeannie and all the losses she's been through in the last few years. Lost her house, lost her husband, lost her fur baby recently. You look at all those losses and you go, they add up. And I hope that she is taking time to rest. I hope that she is taking time to process. I'm hoping that she is taking time to find little bits of joy. And Alice is saying we need to learn not to be our own worst enemy. And what would that look like, Alice? From your experience, what were you doing that made you your own worst enemy? And Jody, what about you? I know that for me, thinking that I had to do the broadcasts all the time was part of it. Yeah, Alice is saying for her to show ourselves the love we show others. And that is one of the things I always joke with Jody about. Whenever she's going through a tough time, I say to her, you may want to ask Jody about this one because she's the most compassionate person I know. The only thing is she doesn't listen to herself as well as she listens to, or she doesn't give herself the same permission that she gives other people. Yeah, Alice said, I was striving to be perfect, and then I realized that perfect doesn't exist. No, I don't want to be perfect. I just want you to be able to see that I am human and that I care and that I am capable of all the same emotions and feelings and hurt and that all of you are. I think that is the best role model I can be. Because if you honestly believe that my life is perfect, you would have no reason to relate to me at all. You might hold me on some pedestal, but you would not relate to me. However, I also know, and you've got to think about this one, that showing that vulnerability gives people room to attack you at different levels as well, ones that have no compassion or empathy. Benji was telling me an incredible story that he was reading a book about I think it was an FBI negotiator. No, yeah, it was a terrorist negotiator. That's what he was. And he was saying that, funnily enough, the guy said that psychology wasn't part of what he did. He said, psychology actually works against sorting out a lot of hostage situations and stuff like that. He said, what works is empathy. Right? What works is empathy. So you need to find out what people are truly feeling and their reason for feeling it. Right? Because everybody has a good reason to feel the way that they do. They are not stupid or lazy or not doing enough. They have a reason for it. but they also have within them their own perceived solutions once they've processed. So part of the job of a negotiator is to help that person process. And you can only do that with empathy. Can't do it with judgment, can't do it with brilliant psychology. You know, you need to empathize. You need to be for a moment sitting in their shoes. You need to feel their pain. You need to understand their belief system. And when you can, then you can help them. And how many of you agree that we have had all sorts of different times during Dear Mama Sal where we've had people of different walks of life, different socioeconomic places, different parts of the world. It's so easy to sort of say, well, you know, if you're feeling that, why don't you go and see a psychiatrist? Well, hello, aren't we lucky that in our society we have that ability? We're in the top 5% of the world. Most of the world doesn't have that luxury, or that solution is considered to be taboo. All right. If I think about most of the countries that I visited in the world, very few of them have the emotional intelligence to know the value of psychiatry or, you know, help having people go to therapy. So it's considered you know. I can remember my mom in England. I can remember my mom saying, "Well, we're not those sort of people." I remember her saying, "We're not those sort of people." So I grew up with a very strong bias against ever going for help when I needed it. Alice is asking a wonderful question. She said, after you've empathized, is it okay to still think that you want to slap the stupid out of them? I want to tell you something, Alice. I'm sure you've been around when I have felt that with the viewer, you know. But, you know, and it's like, I am amazed sometimes, you know, where I think for some of my viewers, you know, that misery is a way of life for them. Because as first as I talk about a possible solution, it's yes, but, and then they drag themselves down again. And they give me an excuse why they can't do that all the time. And I can always remember talking to a friend of mine who was a psychologist, and that was part of it. You can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Yeah, and Alice is saying, I've seen you throw a 2x4 more than once. I normally ask permission, and it's only my opinion, Alice. And that's the other thing. I normally am pretty strong about saying, hey, can I tell you what I hear or what I see? But it's just my view. All right. I do not presume that I am 100% correct, but I can tell you what I see. And, you know, I remember when I was got one of those microgreens stuck in my throat at the moment. It's quite funny. Um, I was saying to Benji how much I valued the fact that he talked to me for a couple of hours this week. Now, Benji talking for a couple of hours on to one person is, you know, quite unusual. And so I couldn't believe that he spent, you know, close to 2 hours talking, and most of it was funny enough about himself and what was going on for him. But it was so unusual. And I said to him, I cannot thank you enough for this time. And he burst out laughing. And he said, this from the lady who through her lifetime always gave people time to talk and listen so intently. He said, it was one of the greatest gifts you've given me is to learn that people, if you listen to them long enough, will tell you what they need to help themselves. Interesting. And he said, this is payback, Sal. which I thought was really cute. Alice is saying, most of the time people say yes, because sometimes we need the hard truth to get out of a destructive loop. Yes, when I say to people, is it okay if I hit you with a 2x4? I ask that question because not everybody has the courage to hear it. But then I normally soften it by saying, hey, it's just my opinion and I could be wrong. All right. I want to make sure that I balance that out. But the truth is, what I'm hearing is you're being a victim. Okay. Or whatever. And then what I try to do is to give them some steps on how to get out of victim if they want to. But I think you will all know people who prefer to stay in victim. I had a friend of mine who has said to me time and time again, the worst present you ever gave me was reality. I thought that was so cute. And she said, I will never forgive you for that. And then she'll laugh. But it was just like, being accountable. It was so much easier when I could blame everybody else. So we look at it and our life is within our control. You see, what happens is when we get sucked in, it's because we don't think we've got any control. I didn't have any control over this pill. I needed to take it. And yet it made me feel horrible. But where's the fun in that? There's no fun in that. And then, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, in cold sweats or hot sweats or whatever, just in sweats, and it's part of the process, right? And then 1 minute I'm turning the heat up in the house, and the next minute I'm turning it down. It's just like, yeah, but it's part of the process. I didn't want the process. Well, hello. I need the process. All right, so Alice is saying, what I see mostly is that lack of self-worth is what stands in the way and what prevents us from reaching out. Ego, right? Mostly it comes down to ego. Why had I not told more people what was really going on? Well, because they all kept telling me how brave I was. And suddenly I didn't feel very brave and I didn't want to tell them that. That's ego stuff, right? Pride. Yeah. And so I just, what I did was I was literally saying to people, I just need to tell you a truth. I'm not doing very well this week. And then, luckily my friends know to ask the right questions. Why? I taught them. You see, that's a very important thing. Have you taught your friends how to deal with you when you are in a tough place? What I found interesting was if you listen to people, they will tell you, as I said, what help they need, but you have to listen a long time to get there. Because you've got to get past the ego and the social. I was saying to Benji, isn't it interesting that we say to people, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. All right. How many of you know that's 90% is social? They don't mean it. Or they mean it in the moment, but they don't mean it like your best friend means it. There's a difference, right? How many people do you know that if you actually phoned them up and said, hey, I remember you saying if I needed any help to let you know, well, this is the call. How many of you know they'd be too busy this week? Alice is saying pride is ego. Lack of self-worth is more like, why would they want to help me? Well, I know my friends would want to help me. See? Yes, Jody. Jody is saying this whole business about let me know if I can help you. She's saying, I mean it when I say it to anyone in my closest circle. But how do you find out that you're in that closest circle? The way you find out is when you tell them they have time. Right. Alice is saying, I never play that social rules of what to say. I only offer help if I mean it. I would like to say, Alice, that you've got an incredibly kind heart, but you also don't suffer idiots well. All right. I understand that. Um, so you've only got so much room in your life. All right. So dealing with idiots isn't where you go. You go to people that you honestly feel you can help. And you know you can't help an idiot. And when I say an idiot, it's somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Now, are they idiots? No. They're just in their path of life. And they haven't, again, we'll talk about it more on Sunday, but they haven't reached that spot where they need to change. I can't repeat that online. But yes, Alice, I agree. So cute. So when I talk about this, do you understand my point about I could feel when Jody did the U-turn? I could feel that the day I had a shower, I did a U-turn. And now the thing was, which direction was I going to um, which direction was I going to take? Was I going to carry on walking in the right direction back to me? Or was I going to carry on being a victim? That was my choice. Make that choice every day. People say to me, I can't believe you're such a happy person. You spend so much time on your own. I go, I'm happy with me. I've done most of the things I want to do in my life, and my days are quite busy. Thank you. They don't realize how much time it takes to do what I do. And that's okay. They'll never understand that. Alice is saying that she looked at her mug today. She's got one of these. I was looking at mine today and going, it's got a chip in it. Mine's got a little tiny chip in it, which is a flaw of the when they did the glaze. But the incredible thing is it's still going. And I was thinking, that really is amazing that's been going. I use it every day for 10 years. And I pray many more. Touch wood. I need wood, real wood. Hang on a second. Oh, yeah. Breadboard. My breadboard is real wood. All right, so that is, hey. Well, look at that. There's Kanzi for us in New Zealand. And I did want to say that it is really important for you all to understand whether you join the broadcasts in the chat or whether you listen to them while you're doing something else, doesn't matter. I am hoping that you all realize that we go through these moments. And who you become in those moments is not who you are. Who you become in those moments is who you are when you forget to look after yourself properly. Does that make sense? When you don't get enough rest, when you don't get enough steps into your day, when you don't eat a balanced meal regularly. I did my A1C this week, and some of you will know what that is. And for those of you who don't, let me try and describe that. I, amongst my other problems, have diabetes. I keep it under control by my diet. I don't take pills to control it. I do it with my diet. And I had to go through some major changes in my life, thanks to a lot of help from Jody, to find out what I could eat rather than what I couldn't. Now, one thing that Jody taught me about diabetes was I could eat everything if I wanted to, as long as I kept the portion control right. And that went against everything that everybody else had told me. And I went, I like that. I like the fact that I can eat absolutely everything I want to. However, here was the thing. Because I started taking that drug a month ago, I know I did some comfort eating. Do you all know what I mean? You know, mac and cheese suddenly looked a whole lot more healthy to me. I wasn't eating the rainbow the way that I normally do, and all those sort of things. And I want to say that it was really miraculous in a way that I could feel it all, right? I could feel, hey, if I want to feel better, maybe I just need to start eating better again. And I went to go, and the whole thing about this A1C is it's like your body has a storeroom in it, and into that goes all your sugar and carbs and stuff, you know. But if you eat too many sugars and carbs, the storeroom can't contain them anymore, and they start running around in your bloodstream. And what the A1C does, it checks your bloodstream and goes, how much of your sugar is running around in there? In other words, you've overloaded your system, and now it's having to run around, you know, uh, in your body. And that's the way I like to describe it. And I was a bit terrified because I knew I'd had a few not so good days, comfort eating, understandable. Jody told me I am allowed to live. And the question was, had I taken control of that enough in time? I didn't ever go very badly, as I realize now that Jody told me that as well, which is she doubted I did very bad things because I don't do that anymore. Or if I do, I know to drink a lot of water or to take, drink, if I've had a lot of sweet stuff, to take a lot of protein to balance it out. And she's taught me all sorts of tricks of the trade, which I now am teaching other people. The gift that keeps on giving, Jody. So I did my A1C, and it was normal. It was point 0.1 up. Hey, I'll take that. And when I think of some of the things that I was eating this week, or the last month, not this week, the last month, I was having quite a few cakes, but I've learned to bake cakes in a different way. All right, that's the difference, right? I've learned to take cake mix, about a cup of it, and put an egg in it and mix it up with a little bit of water if it needs it, and then just nuke it for a couple of minutes. It makes a great cake. No fat, no fat. And for some reason, doesn't seem to mess with my blood sugar too much. I don't know why. I haven't quite worked that one out. And I even have frosting on top of it. But I normally don't have that more than once a week. And during that month, I had it nearly every day. So I was expecting for my A1C to be a lot worse than it was. And so I was very grateful, very, very grateful. And I would have to thank Jody for that. I just want to say that Jeannie's saying that we were beside her when she drove to pick up the remains of her fur baby. And she said, when I drove home, it calmed me. Jeannie, the most important thing we can remember is that you friends that you have in the world are not necessarily the ones that you can see. Maybe they're the ones you can feel. Alice is saying, have you tried mixing shredded squash into your cake? It's almost tasteless. Yeah, it's amazing. I somebody taught me that, and also like sometimes I will just shred extra carrot in. What I also do is I add extra spices in. I make spice cake a lot, right? Because I want to have that extra cinnamon, that extra nutmeg, that all those things that I know are good for my body. So I will make a spice cake, but add more carrot. You know that. Um, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Shredded squash is a really good idea. Yes, spaghetti squash or something like that. So we can eat these things. Yes, Alice is saying she mixes those spices into oatmeal. I also add some raisins into my oatmeal. I do overnight oats, all right, where I add the spices and then I also add either cranberries or raisins because it's like a bit more fruit. And I also, every day, before I eat my evening meal, I have 2 prunes. And after I finish my evening meal, before I go to bed, I have another 2. Quite a simple system. Saves me a fortune on uh, digestive medication. So I look at all these little steps that we take in the right direction. You don't have to take huge ones. As I said, can you imagine that yesterday in my house, just doing little chores, one step at a time, I did over 6,000 steps. Now, obviously on Fridays, I don't do many steps because I spend an awful lot of time standing here. But I consider that to be my day off. Fridays are my day off. I don't have a big thing. Now, could I still make up the steps if I really wanted to? Yep. I could stand in front of the television and just walk while I watch something tonight. I could do that after the broadcast. But they're more likely that after the broadcast, I'm going to fall fast asleep. And that's okay. So there we go. It's okay to have downtime. One of the things I said to Benji when I was talking to him, that when I was earning my keep as a professional speaker, one of the things I learned to do was to go camping. And I want you to listen to this because it's important. Going camping to me meant that I took my trailer and I parked it somewhere. Normally I went to a campground somewhere that had quite nice facilities, but I would park it somewhere. And then I would take my blankie and curl up and read a book. Now, what I found out was the first day I would probably start reading the book and I'd get about 2 pages in when I fall asleep. And then I would wake up a couple of hours later and I would get up and go to the washroom or grab something to eat from the fridge on the way back. And then I would maybe answer an email or something. And then I would curl up and read my book. And I'd read a couple of pages and I'd fall fast asleep. And what I said to Benji was that sometimes it took me 3 days of doing that before, when I had finished grabbing something to eat, that I actually felt like going outside or felt like doing something else. You see, I gave my body permission to rest. And I knew, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand, that reading forces you to slow down. We live in a very fast world. We live in a world where people expect things immediately. We live in a world that is boom, 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 boom. And what I knew as a professional speaker was, I was doing one of the highest stress jobs that there is. Most people would die rather than get up in front of an audience of 5 people, never mind 5,000. And so, or more, it's like, but the thing is that I learned at that time to go camping. Right? I get to go camping. And so I remember that. I don't ever forget it. Whenever I am in need of self-care, I go camping. And that means it's okay to go to my bed and grab my duvet or even my comforter and just lie on top of my bed and curl up with my comforter and go to sleep. Because that's what I would do if I were camping. I wouldn't be making up a beautiful bed every night. I'd just be taking my my comforter and just curling up with a pillow and going to sleep. There are a lot of things when you go camping that are not important. Right? Just camping is about the basics. It's not about extraneous stuff. And so what I was saying to Benji was it's really important. And one of the things that I recommended that he do is to get back into a routine of reading at night, because it slows the brain down. It takes great self-control to read. How many of you realize that? You don't want to read, you'd rather play a game. Why? A game stimulates your brain. There's nothing relaxing about playing a game. Now, I agree that reading a book is theater of the mind. In other words, when you read a story, you are watching the movie in your mind, right? And which is why a lot of people, when they see the movie, go, well, no, that wasn't good. I didn't see that person looking like that at all. Right? We all have our own version of the difference between Jane Eyre when you read it and Jane Eyre when you've seen the 5 different versions of it. You know, the one that you like best is the one where Darcy looks the way you thought he should. It's like, it's really interesting. And so when I look at it, this whole business about going camping is a really good thing to remember. When things are not going well, go camping. Cut out a lot of the ego stuff. When you're camping, you don't worry about wearing the same clothes 2 days in a row, do you? In fact, you normally have to because you haven't got that many clothes with you and you don't have a washing machine to wash it. Now, if you're going for a long time, you learn how to wash your clothes camping. But, what I found is most people wear the same clothes. Now, is that yucky? Not really. Your undies are clean. The clothes you're wearing on the outside. You're not doing a whole lot of dirty work. So, there are a lot of things about camping that are really wise. And I've always said that the best real life lessons you can teach a child is to take them camping on a regular basis. Take them away from hot and cold running water. Take them away from, the microwave. Take them away from a lot of things. Yeah, Alice is saying I camp out in my bed at least once a week. Yeah, have a PJ day. And try and watch how guilty you feel. It's your life, not a dress rehearsal. This is your life. If you feel like a PJ day, take one. Don't worry about who judges that. I had somebody, a new person, deliver my groceries this week, and apparently I didn't get to the door fast enough. And when I went to take the groceries, he said, I did knock. Weren't you expecting me? And I said, sir, I just didn't get here as fast as you would like. And that would be because I am twice your age, maybe more. And did you even think that maybe I was in the washroom? You see, people see things from their perspective, not from yours. I didn't add, all the other things I could have added, but you understand, sometimes you've just got to give them a new reality so they understand better. It's not that I didn't want to get to the door fast enough. It was just I was too far away from it. So there we go. I urge you to be aware of your feelings, good and bad, knowing that they are both okay. It was okay for me to go through that bad time. You know why? Because that's where I did the processing. That's what I needed to do, and that's what I wasn't giving myself the time to do. I wasn't giving myself the time to process this drug properly. And my body felt it. And it's true. I may never, for the next 5 years, get that energy back that I had before. It's the price I may have to pay. So let me learn how to cope differently. And so I look at it and go, remember the opposites, all right? If you're feeling sad, what brings you joy? If you're feeling lonely, reach out and talk to people. If you are feeling whatever and it's negative, understand there's a reason that you have that feeling. You've created it in some way. And if you find that, well, I talk to a lot of people, but they don't seem to care. The reason is because you're probably not telling them the truth. You're probably talking at a very superficial level, and they have no reason to think that you are hurting as much as you're hurting. And you have your own excuses and reasons for doing it, and that's okay. All right, everybody, so there we go. I'm hoping that it made some sense and that you can see the logic. Turn it around if you want to change. This is Dear Mama Sal saying thank you all for being here and allowing me to tell my truth and to tell the truth of those others who are brave enough to let me tell their stories. It is so important that we keep telling our truth. It will help so many people. Alice, you've had a rough decade that I know of, and you are still doing the things you need to do to learn how to look after yourself better. And I applaud you for that. Yeah, I know it's been a decade. I met you when. So look at it and go, be proud of yourself, Alice. You've done so much work on yourself. And Jeannie, do so much more resting and processing. And, nobody will ever take Misty Moore away from you any more than they will ever take um, York away from you or your original house away from you. See, they live inside us. Nobody takes it away. Just not other people can see it, and that's okay. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, take your control back. Whenever you start to lose it, be aware, process it properly, ask a lot of questions of yourself, and then start telling the truth. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, take baby steps back to you. The real you is not depressed. The real you is not angry. The real you is not sad or lonely. The real you feels great. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, bye-bye for now. Thanks, Jody, and everybody else that's part of the group here today. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Bye for now.